Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Kitchen Competent. I'm Chef Anne Marie, and we're going to. Good morning, everyone. A little bit of technical difficulties there. Good morning, everyone. I'm Chef Anne Marie, and this is Kitchen Competent, and we'll be talking today. Hi, Debbie, about meat and good selections, and I am going to grab some gloves before everyone else. Hi, Betty. I'll be right back. Just remembered my gloves. I like to use gloves when I'm doing meat so that I don't touch everything else, especially on camera. We're going to be talking about meat today, and I've got two really good examples. Everyone's afraid of beef, and that's what we're talking about. Not everyone's afraid of beef, but it's kind of hard when you don't know which cuts to pick, and you don't know why. So I have a really simple solution. It's a very layman. The chef that trained me would kill me for saying this, but this is how I remembered it for the test. When you're picking your meat, you want to have it be a quick cook or a long cook. And the way you can decide that is muscle takes longer to cook. So you have to think about where it's on the animal. And in this case, it's a cow, beef. You have to think about where it is on the animal. You want something that is not too muscly. So if you were to take I'm going to talk about lamb because it comes to mind, leg of lamb. That happens to be, let me think here. If it's the belly or the back, they don't work as hard. If it's a thinner piece of meat and it has more like you don't want it to be the part that works. So like in any animal, like the bottom is usually the softest because it doesn't work so hard. This is a flank steak, and it's on the chest and it works hard, and so it's the flank of the animal, and so it has a lot of connective tissue, and you can see the ribs in it. Hi, Shauna. So we're talking about the meat and what to pick. When you're looking at steaks, that's the most common thing people ask me is about steaks. When you're looking at steaks, you want to look at the marbling because the fat in it is what's going to tenderize things. The thinner you cut it, the quicker you can cook it. And you want to look at what fat content it has in it. Now, a tenderloin is the most tender, and it's because it does not have the fat. It has it around the outside, and you have to trim it back to it, but it has not been worked. It's a piece that has not been worked anymore. Good morning, Shauna. It is, so you have to think about how the animal, when the animal's walking around, what muscles it uses and what it does and uses. So I'm going to let you guys ask questions, but that's why the New York cut is so good. Hi, Laura, because it's marbled. It's got the fat in it. It doesn't have a lot of connective tissue, but I'm going to go and show you how to deal with connective tissue and muscle. And this is a flank steak. Good morning, Laura. And so we're going to figure out how to make this a softer piece. So you can also tell by the price. If they're tender, they're cheaper, or it's more expensive. I'm backwards today. More expensive. And if they're less expensive, it means they are less desired because people don't know how to cook them because they either got to cook longer or they have all this connective tissue that you need to break down, okay? So that's why a less expensive steak is, it's because it's tougher, and you just learn how to tenderize it, which is a really cool tool that I thought I had here and I don't. I have a meat mallet, that'll work too. A meat mallet has a pounding on the side. This will tear up flesh if it's tender. If it's a really tough piece like this, I can pound it It's not going to do anything to it, but they usually have a soft side too. So if you have a more tender piece of meat that you want to still pound out, you can use this side. But I would recommend everyone have a meat mallet, because that helps you save money. So we have the flank steak. What we need to do is break down these tissues. So the first thing I'm going to do is salt it well. Salt helps break down tissue a little bit, and it seasons. And I'm going to put some pepper on it. And I'm going to grab my tongs because I don't want to keep changing my gloves. And I'm going to flip it over and do the same on the other side. I'm going to do the salt. Salt helps break it down. Some sugars do if it's going to be long time. And then some of this pepper. Then we want some oil, helps a little bit, but not a ton. What really helps is acid. So I like to use lime juice on this. Hi Lisa. Hi Mike. I like to use lime juice. Now remember, lime juice cooks stuff, but in this case, when it comes to beef, it actually will help tenderize it. It starts to break down those tissues. Now if I'm really concerned about it, I would leave it overnight. I also have some cool cilantro that I want to add to it because it'll give it flavor. So what I would do normally is I would lay this out in the refrigerator. I might, if I had fresh limes, I'd squeeze limes over it, put it in the refrigerator overnight, and just let those connective tissues break down. If I'm coming home and it's a quick cook, I'm taking this off because we're going to start cooking. If I'm laying it down and it's a quick cook, I am going to take this cilantro off because it'll burn. And now we're going to pretend like this was all night because I wanted to show you how to marinate it. It's simple, don't be afraid of it. Salt, pepper, lime juice. You need an acid, so a vinegar or a lime or lemon juice. Be creative. I personally like cilantro and lime on my flank steak. And this is the first time I've talked to someone today, so I'm getting used to my words. And some oil to help break down those tissues and give it a little flavor and make it look good in the pan. So I use a grill pan inside. I have a grill at home, but here for the camera I'm going to use a grill. If you have a good grill pan that's non-stick, that's the best. I had to put oil on mine because this thing has been through the battles. So it is, yeah, it's not that great. In fact, it's a little too much. I was trying to oil it well. So, gotta wipe that off. You don't want oil on the outside of your pan. That's how they catch fire. So I've got the oil here. Debbie, do you have a question? Lime and cilantro too. You love lime and cilantro too. That's great. Me too. So I'm going to let the pan get nice and hot. So we're going to wait a few minutes and we're going to talk about this flank steak is a quick cook. It is not a long term. The way this connective tissue is, and there's no way to get it out because it's, you know, probably 30%. The way this meat is, if you can't cut it out, and if you cook it for a long time, it actually will get tougher. So you want it to cook quick. So I'm letting my pan get nice and hot. And I've oiled the pan because I have an old pan that everything sticks on. And now I'm going to see if it sizzles. You hear that? There you go. And now we're just going to lay that flank steak on there. Presentation side down first, remember. Let me get this out of the way. And today I remembered a board and a plate to put it on. I'm really excited about that actually. I am going to flip it real quick because I want you to see the way it looks. Can you guys see this in the picture here? So this is a way to take an inexpensive cut of meat, although they've become popular, and you flip it over, and now you can see what I'm talking about. This ribbing is what we're trying to soften up and break down. So we've oiled and limed it. You can leave it overnight with the lime because you can't with chicken or fish, only with beef because it gives a nice, it won't cook it as much and you want it to break down. I put it in a Ziploc baggie at home, throw it in the fridge if I know we're going to barbecue the next day, throw it on the barbecue. But it'll work if you want a little summer in the winter. It'll work in a grill pan. So we've got our lovely pan, and I'm gonna wait for it to get a little color to it. Meanwhile, we'll let it keep going. I'm just gonna leave it on there. You can see it, and I'm gonna go over to this pan, and I'm gonna turn it on. This is water I have boiling for our next adventure, which is I'm gonna boil some noodles for some beef stroganoff, because I think that's another way to cut costs and to know how to use your meat and your leftovers. So let's go back to talking about a quick cook or a slow cook. So a chuck roast or something that's big and thick and heavy is also a slow roast, but if you do it on high, I like prime rib rare in the middle. So I like it to be hot driven and then slowed down a little bit to get a little bit towards the center and then pull it out. Again, you can go recipes. You can go online and find recipes and expertise. This is about you going shopping and understanding what to cook and what to expect. Because in the grocery store, you or wherever you're getting your meat at the butcher is a great way to, see you can color here. The butcher is also a great place to learn a lot. I've learned a lot from a lot of butchers. I'm just trying to get some nice score on it. And we're going to talk about cuts, but we're cooking this quick. Chuck roast and things like that. I've got my noodles going here, so I'm going to put the noodles in here so that they're pre-cooked because we're doing, live. And I'm going to show you how you can cook a nice meal quickly. All of ours are real quick. We got nothing on Rachel Ray, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but love it. So when you're looking at steaks, depending on how you like your steak, you want marbling that will help tenderize it as it's cooking, and you want to pound it if you see marbling. If it's a sirloin steak, those need a lot of help. New York steaks are one of my go-tos. Filet mignon, of course, is wonderful. It's very expensive. It is the leanest, and it's a quick cook. If you want a sirloin steak, that's a marinated, pounded out, put some effort into it steak. Sirloin also can be cut very thin, marinated, and put on skewers. That's really delicious. But we're working on a flank steak because I'm trying to give you some alternatives here. So you can see that we're getting some color here. You can see that. My comments got it so I can't, but up higher. See the color on it? So as soon as I'm happy with the color on it, I'm going to pull it off and show you how to cut it, because cutting it matters too. London broil is another great way of getting, that's one of our family's favorites. If you marinate, it's one of those marinate, cut it right, but it's nice and tender, and they have their place. It's not like you're worried about, I'm just stirring my noodles, get ready for the next event. The next event, every dinner's an event. I think that you should be able to cook all stages of beef because you'll like it more. I'm going to pull out my little cutting board here and get ready to cut this. It's almost done. That was about 10, 12 minutes, and I'm kind of rushing it, but I like it on the rarer side. You can see how it's nice and colorful. I'm going to turn my burner off here. And I just, for the magic of TV, want to show you how to cut it. So you can see there's lines here. You can see there's lines here. That's the tough part. If you were to cut your meat along the lines, it's going to be tough to eat. But if you cut it at an angle this way as well as across those lines, you will get a nice tender piece. Now, if I was on a barbecue and I wasn't in a time crunch, I would cut it, and I like to cut this thin. This cuts the same as London broil, just so you know. You can see how it looks like a regular steak when you get inside, and it's tender. I'm going to cut a couple pieces just to show you, kind of going at an angle here. I'm going to turn off my noodles. Kind of going at an angle here and cutting it thin. You can see how beautiful that is. So we're going to keep cutting just a few strips to give you an idea. Again, if I were at home and I had all the time in the world and a glass of wine in my hand, I might let it cook a little bit longer, but I want to get through to the next dish, so I'm going to show you this. And then I would pretty it up with some lovely cilantro. Now, if you're growing cilantro in your yard, this is a cool thing that you didn't know, I bet. I brought in some, this is cilantro flowering, and there's some flowers here, and because I've been carrying it around all morning, it's kind of shriveled up, but they're pretty bright when you bring them in. So they have still the same flavor. Most flowers from your herbs have the same flavor as the leaves. So I like to put some of that on there. And what's really special you don't always get is the berry. This is actually coriander. And it smells so good. I'm going to put some more flowers on this. This is actually the cilantro. Because cilantro and coriander. We're just going to put some nice young buds here. And that'll give your guests the same flavor. I don't mind doing a little coriander on the plate. So utilize all of your garden. Coriander, if you like coriander too, you can use that in your marinade as well. I would have done that this morning if I hadn't been thinking about all the other things I needed to do with you guys. Okay, so here is your first dish. Flank steak, marinate it, make sure you have a fat and an acid. Season it well, fat, acid, and then the longer you marinate it, the better. Cutting it, cooking it quickly, and then cutting it at an angle. We're fighting all of those parts that are juicy to make it, or tough to make it tender, and then it's melt in your mouth. So there's that, and then I'm trying to hurry because I want to make sure I get in with the next dish. Thanks to everybody who's been donating and helping me out make this dream come true. I really want to help more people and have everyone help their budget, help them connect to their families, and to just make it a wonderful place to be in the kitchen. So thank you for that. Thanks for the donations. They're appreciated. I am going to show you how to make a quick leftover meal that is awesome. It doesn't have to be leftovers, but I see no point in why not. Beef stroganoff. Everybody loves it. I grew up with in a household where they used a packet and hamburger to make beef stroganoff, and I didn't know how easy it was to make beef stroganoff, and so I will never make it with, well, I don't ever say never, because you just never know your life, right? But for the most part, I couldn't understand why anyone wouldn't do it for real. I have olive oil. I'm gonna cut up. I keep a bag in my freezer, and every time I make a roast or anything like that, I keep pieces. So these are cooked pieces of roast or pieces of steak left over, any of that. I keep that in my This looks like it's I just defrosted it for this class because it doesn't matter. This looks like a piece of brisket. Any kind of beef. I just keep it so that it's ready. People that say they don't like leftovers don't even know they mostly eat leftovers because you can make stuff into other things. So we have the meat. I keep all the pieces and trimmings. I cook them up with my meat and I keep them. I will take my meat and I'm going to cut it into slices. It's got some yummy seasoning already on it, some salts and some peppers. Cut it up into chunks. My favorite to do with this is leftover roast that falls apart. I think that makes the best, but it'll all work. I'm just going to cut it up into small pieces. This is cooked meat. When I have leftovers or pieces and ends that don't look pretty for the plate, I put them in a bag in the freezer, and then when I want to make beef stroganoff or something like that, I can pull them out. So I've cut up the meat. I'm going to put them in the fry pan. If it was raw, I would start with that. I'm going to put a little bit of garlic in, just a little. Just gonna start smelling already. I've already got the noodles. I have the water boiling because I was worried it wouldn't get done. I'm gonna take some onion. I'm gonna slice that up. And I can cut it on the board because it is going to go in the same dish. So I can do that. I got that going, and then I washed some mushrooms. I like them big because they shrink. And I'm going to take my mushrooms and I'm going to chop those up. We're going to make a yummy beef stroganoff. So, sorry, I got to look at what I'm doing so I don't cut myself. And I want like about equal parts of mushrooms and onions with some beef, and you choose how much beef. Did you want it real beefy, or this is beyond the recipe, so you get to try whatever you like. So I'm going to throw those in. I'm going to saute them up. We're going to get rid of the cutting boards so you can see what I'm doing. So these are extra pieces, or if you have a sirloin or something that you wanted to cook up, I mean, you can cook it with meat, but I think this is a fun weeknight dish that you can do any old time. I'm going to let that cook a second. I'm going to step away and grab a jug of water. Be right back. So we're ready when that happens. So I've taken this and I've got some onions and some garlic, and I'm not cooking it very long because it's going to cook again. The meat was already cooked because I pulled it out of the freezer from leftovers. I've got the noodles here boiling. You can hear the I like egg noodles. You can use any noodles you like. I just am trying to get the onions to cook a little bit without, see the sauce? So look at the bottom of the pan. See that? That's flavor. Everyone says, oh, it's cooking down on the pan. That's actually flavor, because when we add our liquid into there, it's going to pull that up, and that's the actual flavor that will add to your sauce. I'm going to take and add a little bit of water to start creating my sauce. You can see how that changed, and doesn't look like water anymore. It pulled up all that bits, we call them bits, the pan bits, and I'm going to scrape at it a little. It kind of cleans the pan and gets that in there, that meld of onions and mushrooms and all those lovely things. And then I like it really beefy, so this is my best friend, better than bouillon. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I'm going to. All it is a stock, a beef stock that's cooked down. There's a vegetarian one, there's a chicken one, and they're really good for adding flavor when you don't have any on hand to a sauce. So this with 1 teaspoon, actually 1 teaspoon and a cup of water actually becomes a stock, but I like to use it concentrated in my dishes. So you can see it's nice and brown and beautiful. And now, while we let that cook a little, I'm going to grab the noodles out of the pan. And I like, as I said before, I love these big egg noodles for this. And I'm just going to add it in because it helps add the liquid. I'm just straining it with a slotted spoon out of my water, have it going the same time as I start this. I did get the water boiling early so we wouldn't have to wait for it. It only cooks like 3 to 5 minutes because it's like a homemade egg noodle. There are products out there you can buy like that. And I'm just going to go put this in there. I like the noodles. Some people make the sauce and then do the noodles, but then I find that the sauce will actually become a little runny from the noodles. So I am adding the noodles, cooking down the sauce at the same time so that as it adds the liquid, it will actually get rid of the moisture from the noodles. If I were making a big batch, like if I was commercially making, this is home cooking, if I was commercially making it, I would add, I would dump this in a strainer, strain it, and do that. But because of, I'm pretending I'm at home, even though I'm in my commercial kitchen, I am just coating the noodles, getting it all nice and beefy, mixing in that beef stock that I put in there. So it's beef stock, it's noodles, and it's garlic and mushrooms and onions cooked down, is all it is. And now I'm going to add the final ingredients. I actually am going to add an extra ingredient as well. It's not the final ingredient. I lied. Sorry about that. Again, I'm cooking as if I'm at home, so. Hi, Francis. I'm going to add in some butter. Just a little bit, because it adds a flavor to it. And remember, I don't have, other than a little bit of olive oil at the beginning, I really don't have sauce. So this is going to give it a silky mouth texture, because you have to think about flavor and texture. This is going to give it that silky mouth flavor. And then I'm going to add some sour cream. It doesn't take a lot. I'm going to add some sour cream. Figure out what I want to use here. It's a lot more intimidating when people are watching you, so get used to it because you should have your kids watching it. So basically, you see how easy that was? The packet is open the packet, add the sour cream to the brown hamburger. Well, this wasn't much more than that, and it's so much more healthy. And as I stir, you can see it'll look and taste and be beef stroganoff. But the one element I like to add that's extra and secret and your choice is I like a little thyme in mine. It just brings up a little bit of level. But what I want to say is, and you can see, there we are. Now, if my husband were here, I'd have to add a bunch of Parmesan because that's the way he likes it. But I'm going to taste it first because remember I use seasoned beef. Francis, you're just tuning in, and I wanted to let you know that we're talking about when you make a roast or steaks or any kind of meat, beef. I use the pieces that are left or not cut and put on the platter, or an extra steak, and I have a big bag. I put it in the bag, and then when I want to make beef stroganoff, I slice it up all different meats that are all cooked, and then I cook it in the pan with the mushrooms and the onions and some garlic and some beef stock. We cook it up, and then we add noodles, cooked noodles, and I like to add the noodles before the cream. That's just my thing. I don't think recipes tell you that. And it'll thicken as it goes that way, and you can get the true flavor. When you make the sauce the way you want it and then add the noodles, it's gonna make it all it'll change your flavor and make it a lot diluted. I'm also going to turn this down because, as you can see, it's thickened beautifully, and I'm going to grab some thyme after I taste it. So let me I have to find a small piece because I haven't figured out how to talk and eat at the same time. Not very good. It doesn't need time. It's delicious. If I wanted to, if it felt a little too heavy and I had a little too much beef stock, I would add a little lemon. It would brighten it up. Because the meat was seasoned, I don't need to add salt and pepper. Again, when you're working with these things, taste it as you go. Taste it while you're going. I can tell by the color. If I wanted it more white, I'd add more sour cream, but I wish you could taste this and smell it. It's really good. I encourage you to try it at home. It's just leftover. We always try to have onions on hand. I had leftover mushroom. I had leftover beef in the freezer that I just pulled out and defrosted in water. Then I sauteed it up, and it's a great meal with some noodles. Pennies to eat a great meal. And it's actually cheaper than going out and buying hamburger in your packet and all the ingredients for your packet. So then you pretty it up. And in this case, I'm going to pretty it up by putting it in this lovely bowl, because that's the part I always forget when I'm on camera, is doing the bowl thing. So there's that. And here is a nice bowl of beef stroganoff. We cooked some flank steak that we marinated. Remember, you need your acid and your fat and seasoning to get that to break down and make it more tender. Next week is going to be really fun. I always go on, before I forget, I always go on and answer any questions. So if you have questions, even later if you're viewing this and you have questions, just ask and I'll go on and answer for you. You guys didn't have a lot of questions today, either that or I wasn't paying attention. I can't always see. I like lime and cilantro on the flank steak, and I love the beef stroganoff, of course. You can do a little tip I just thought of that I forget that I use for catering, is you can actually saute mushrooms and leave the beef out and do a vegetable stock and do a stroganoff that way as well. Next week we're trying to cram as many weddings with this COVID thing as we can, and so we have all kinds of weddings coming up, and so next week I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek into the kitchen as we're getting ready for 3 weddings. So tune in and check it out, and I'll show you what we did early, what we did late. We're going to run a half hour of just showing you around the kitchen and how to get ready for an event, because you know what? This isn't going to be forever. We are trying to put the social into social distancing. It's important to be safe. It's important to wear your mask. I'm not wearing my mask right now because I'm alone here. It's important, but it's also important to socialize. Don't barricade yourself in your house, and don't reach out to people on phones. It's okay outside. Stay 6 to 10 feet away from each other. Outside, you can still barbecue. You can have 5 people. It was 10, and I'm not going to be quoted, but we still say you have anniversaries and birthdays and all these things, and your family that you live with is also tired of being at home. So, you know, just make the weekend or make the evening or dinner, just make it fun, like a party, because we need uplifting, and we need to connect, and having people on Skype and do whatever you can to reach out to people safely, and enjoy your cooking. Don't forget to donate if you are able to, teaching people how to cook and getting them comfortable in the kitchen, saving money. We really appreciate you tuning in, and we really appreciate all the support we're getting, and I appreciate you, and stay safe and stay healthy. Have a great weekend.